This week we watched Joker Folie A Deux, directed by Todd Phillips.
Be honest, I actually liked it a lot better than I expected. Um, but I had to reckon with this movie's more about the primary focus tends to be on this movie more on Lady Gaga and her character of this version of Harley Quinn as the driving impetus and driving force of the movie for the most part due to her interactions with Arthur Fleck, which I think is kind of given away in the name. Like I thought like this is being an ignorant American. Like I didn't really think much about the thing Folie à Deux. I saw a deux and I said, "Oh, that's two." All right, Joker Part Two. It flew over my head. It wasn't until I looked up what Folie à Deux is. It's basically like a shared delusional disorder where people impose and become dependent on one another. It is kind of like what Harley Quinn does to Joker. It's kind of giving away the title that she's the one who able to influence him to do what she wants him to do in a way. Um, I also feel like a lot of the bad news about this movie being bad tends to also be for American audiences who really don't like musicals unless they're prepared to watch a musical. Unless you're blatantly telling them this movie is going to be a musical, they tend to avoid musicals for the most part. So when they go to watch Joker and they're expecting what they saw for the first one and then they get a musical, they're going to be off put by it. So
Yes, the title of my notes is Why is everyone so mad at Joker? Because I really didn't understand it.
yeah.
Um, I watched the movie and I thought it was fine. Like I don't know. I really had to like look at other people's reviews to see like what was the issue because I couldn't really understand like why even before I went to go see it, the reviews were so bad. And so I watched the movie and I was waiting for things to get bad. And I was just like, am I missing something? I don't know. I felt like I was being gaslit
Yeah.
by everyone who was just like, this movie is so terrible. And then I would watch the reviews and they were like, it's not the worst thing ever, but like, why didn't you know it was a musical? Or like, this story went nowhere. We learned no new information about him. Like it's so boring. Like that's why everyone was like
Yeah.
review bombing it because they were bored. I was not personally, but like I don't know. It's a very strange whatever's happening right now. They're just because I was talking about this with my friend. Like there seems to be like a very strong disconnect between like how audience might have seen this movie versus how critics are representing it.
hmm
And I don't know exactly what that disconnect is, like even right now, because I'm just like, we've seen some trash
Yeah.
movies. Like we've seen some utter garbage. And I'm like, this is definitely not that. Like, is it the best movie I've seen this year? No. Is it
No.
better than the first Joker? No.
No.
But it's not terrible. So I was just really confused on like why everyone was so particularly upset about this particular movie. We've seen a lot of comic book sequels, prequels, like some of them have not been good at all. And I don't think that the reception was ever this harsh, or maybe it was. I'm just like misremembering, but I don't know. I watched it like I knew it was going to be a musical. I feel like most people who criticize it also knew it was going to be a musical. So like it's not like it was technically a surprise. And I don't like musicals. Like
Yeah.
I've talked about this many times on this channel. I don't like musicals, but I thought the music was fine. Like I think Lady Gaga's voice held most of it down. There were too many songs. I'll give you that. There was way too many songs. We could have cut a whole bunch of songs out of there.
Yeah.
But Gaga ate down. Like she sang wonderfully. So like there was no complaint when I was listening to it. I was like, her voice is so good. And I think that how like what it was representing in terms of these people's like true mental illness, like I was like, that's an interesting way to represent that. So I was like, okay, like, is it great? No, but like I'm not miserable. Like I'm not having a terrible time. I
Yeah.
thought that it was a much more like indie kind of like we're really looking into the mind of this man who was just like severely mentally ill, like narcissistic. Unfortunately, he's violent because like that's been his background. Like his experiences have been violent, so he is perpetuating that cycle. Um, and like trying to understand like what's going on in his mind and the fact that he's just like desperately needs to be loved and like it wants to be loved by someone.
Yeah.
It was just, I was like, okay, this is an interesting way to take it. But I feel like some people felt like it was not good because it was trying to be a courtroom drama and also a musical, and they didn't do either one of those things well. Or they just didn't like it because we didn't learn any new information about the character. And so it felt like a pointless movie. Maybe, like, was it a compelling courtroom drama? No. Like I don't think like it was well written in terms of like we've seen great courtroom dramas. Anatomy of a Fall is a great example of like a wonderful courtroom drama. But like it wasn't terrible. Like there were some really good moments in there. So I was like, okay, fine. And then was it a good musical? I mean, Joaquin Phoenix's voice is fine. Like it's not amazing, but like it did a serviceable job. I think you're really there just for Lady Gaga. Like that was honestly most of Gaga's stuff was just like singing.
Mm,
Um, and I think people had an issue with that as well. I think that her performance was great. So like I'm not even gonna try to be like, oh, all she did was sing. Because like, no. She did a really good performance in this role. So I wanted to know more about her. I wish we got some more of that.
yeah.
There were definitely missed opportunities, but I just think overall, like the hate that this movie has gotten is very strange to me. Like I really feel like I'm missing something. Like I can't see what you guys are seeing.
Yeah. Same. Joker is one of those characters in comic books who, for comic book and cartoon interpretation, is very black and white. He's like, I just want chaos, and that's
Hmm.
it. Whereas when it comes into the film part, even if it's Nolan's Batman, it's fucking Jack Nicholson's portrayal of it in the earlier Batman movies. Like the movies always try to have to add something to him, which sometimes works, sometimes doesn't. Um, with this movie, like, and this has been an ongoing argument. Like, I had to explain to somebody like the ending, like somehow it went viral from explaining the ending of the movie, where he's
Hmm.
of the first one, where he's on the bus being taken to prison, and they're like, oh, he's happy now because he's caused chaos in the world. And I was like, no, if you watch the movie, and this movie also explains it more. His issue is loneliness, is the attention. Like he's smiling now because he thinks people finally notice him, which
Hmm.
carries over into this movie. This movie is not like it's not going to give you any new information about the character. We've learned all there is to learn about him in the first movie, point
Hmm.
blank period. This movie is more so just a continuation of those issues. Like all through the court trial, like his attachment Lady Gaga's character goes, "Oh, you're finally noticing me." Like he cares about the attention more so than the actual lawyer who's like, "Oh, I'm trying to get you actual help. Like you might not want you might not care for what I'm doing, trying to get you the help you need, but I'm doing the right thing for you." And he was like, "I don't care what you think. People are paying attention to me, and that's all I really care about." And that's the continuation of this character arc. And I think that's also part of why people don't like it. They wanted more of what they got in the first movie. But I also do think this issue with this movie goes back to a lot of Todd Phillips's issues to me as a director. Like if you
Hmm.
look at his filmography, his strength is really comedies and stuff like that. Like the first Joker movie is really him out on his own, really doing a psychological thriller, a new genre. Only time he's involved at projects that go outside the comedy realm, All the King's Men, he's just a producer on there. People are unprepared when a director finally goes 100% into a genre that they're unprepared for.
Todd Phillips is, he's a an interesting director. Like I think he takes the work very seriously, which is fair.
Yeah.
You should. But I think that like sometimes the self-seriousness does come through and then it ends up not saying much. I think that's
Hmm.
one of the issues that people really had was that it just wasn't really saying anything about anything. And I don't know if I agree with that totally. I feel like what this movie did was it said, okay, this is how the people in Gotham have reacted to this Joker character, but also in real life, this is how people are reacting to Joker. The meme of him dancing down the stairs, like all of it, it's become very
Meta.
meme, yeah, meta. Like this guy is not, he's not who you think he is. He's not like trying to like blow everything up and start everything again. Like he's not some type of revolutionary. Like he is just a guy who is suffering deeply. Like that is who he is. And I think that at the end of the film, that's what he comes to terms with. It's like I'm not really doing anything to like move things forward. Like everything is still super corrupt. I think a lot of the stuff in Arkham, especially, was like a huge pointer to that of like the system is so corrupt. Like, and even in my defiance of not even trying to be defiant, but just being like taking up my upset with this talk show host and killing him live on camera, like whatever that sparked, it's not sparking anything lasting. Like everything is just messed up. So I'm not actually this Joker character, I'm Arthur.
Yeah,
And I don't want to do this anymore. And that's why Lady Gaga leaves him. Like that's why I think he ends up dying. I think there's a lot wrapped up in just like not being your alter ego and just understanding like this is just what I am. Like, like he said earlier, like he's not trying to get better
yeah,
because that wasn't his goal. And I think that like that is interesting to me. It's interesting to me how he had to like confront his own celebrity in a way that didn't actually make him feel all that better.
yeah,
Um, and like it didn't get him what he wanted. Like he's not free of anything.
mm,
Like he's stuck there.
yeah,
So I think that that was an interesting to me that was interesting. I think that that said something about people who are just like trying to be little rebels and like not really understanding how things work and so they get disappointed because it's not like shaking out the way they wanted it to. But also, it's also like an ego thing. Like I need to feel important.
yeah.
Was it too long? Yes, of course it was, because why are all these movies over 2 hours? Meh. But like I thought it had something to say. I related to it in some way, not like
Yeah.
fully, but just like in like, okay, like I get this. Like I get how we ended up here.
I also think like what you hit the nail on the head like is when he has a recollection like, oh, I actually need help. I can no
Mhm.
longer maintain the facade of being the person you want to be. Like as me, like I'm very outspoken when I have of my mental issues. Like that's also kind of when I know when I'm in these moments of crises, how I reconcile it with myself. Like my favorite scene, which kind of sums up when I'm dealing with those kind of things, is from I think it was Casino Royale, where James Bond is like in the shower depressed and he's kind of like, oh, I have no armor left. Like that's how I view like those breakdowns processing in my head. And I like the fact that he recognizes, oh, I cannot be this person that you guys want me to be because I really can't. I mentally cannot do it. I actually need help. And I think it also delves into a bit of stan culture in a way, just like Donald Glover did with Swarm, dealing with stan culture. Lady Gaga is basically a fanatic fan. Like I'm going to self-admit myself into a psychiatric hospital just so I can see you. I'm going to lie just to get close to you. And when now that you have also realized, oh, that you're not the person that everybody thinks you are, I'm no longer a fan of yours. I'm casting you by the wayside. And that happens a lot with people. They edify these celebrities and have fictionalized versions. Oh, this person's like this person's like that. And once that image is shattered, they've lost complete interest in that
Yeah.
celebrity as well.
Yeah, that's so true. And that's exactly what happens. You know, the lawyer warns him that that's what's going to happen, and then it happens. And I just feel like, yeah, that's such a direct commentary on like what is happening right now. The argument like there is no point to this or it has nothing to say, I just don't think that that stands when you look at it. I feel like it's actually saying quite a
Quite a lot.
bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. I do have an issue with studios like not marketing things correctly. I feel
Mhm.
like if you were not in the know, like when this script came out that it was going to be a musical and you thought that you were just going to see like the Joker, the first one, but just this is the second one, this is the follow-up, and you had no idea that it was going to be a musical, really, yeah, you would feel duped. Because it's like they were trying to like not really say it when they were doing the interviews. And I feel like if they were just upfront, things probably wouldn't would have went down. I'm not saying better, but at least differently. I do feel like in terms of all the technical aspects, I thought that the cinematography was gorgeous. Everything looked fantastic. I loved it. Like, were there some shots that were just artsy fartsy just to be artsy fartsy? Yeah. But like the cinematography was really good and the performances were great. Like Joaquin Phoenix is a great actor. He did his thing in this the same way he did it in the Joker, the first one. Like Lady Gaga is a great actor. She ate this role. Like, and I liked that it was a much more subtle and less kind of outlandish and like really brash the way Margot Robbie plays the character. I felt like this character was a lot more down to earth, a lot more realistic. And I feel like there are other parts of the world that you can explore. Like we did it with Rob Pattinson's Batman. We're doing it right now with the Penguin. Like there's a lot of stories to tell within this one space. So like if you're not getting everything that you need from this movie, like that's kind of okay because there are other movies and other projects that you can kind of world build, discover like what else is going on. The ending was interesting because it seemed like they were trying to connect it with Chris Nolan's version of the Batman. I don't know how I feel about that necessarily, but I do think that him dying made sense to me. I feel like this was definitely the
Yeah,
end of at least Joaquin's version of the character.
yeah,
So I was okay with it. The Joker part, I'm not sure because I don't really know if they were consciously trying to tie it in with
yeah.
anything else.
I think information came out earlier today about the fact of that scene where he actually gets sliced.
Hmm.
Um, when, of course, when Nolan was still involved with Warner Brothers after the first Joker, and then up until recently where he split, um, the information of the sequel had came out, and he had already said to Warner Brothers like, let's not have this Joker like self-mutilate himself because he thinks it tramples upon the version that we got left behind by Heath Ledger in his last role. And I think that was like, okay, fine, Nolan, you're our main guy. Warner Brothers, we're not gonna rock the boat. We'll acquiesce to that whim, and it makes sense. Like this Keith Ledger's last role. He has that iconic version of the Joker. You don't want to cross threads and pull whatever information, put ever examples from that Joker into a new Joker. I kind of see his point. Like let his version of Joker be his own version of Joker, and so on and so forth. Um, but apparently that got tossed by the wayside by the powers that be, and the issues people are talking about now as far as the movie not being screened. This was reported by Puck, which discussing news kind of said reported it. It was reported by the Puck from like when TIFF was going on. And that's like last month, like September 5th, where the news came out that Warner Brothers did not screen this picture at all. And they also
Hmm.
mentioned like, oh, it's the same formula they had with the first one. The difference being is that was like a $60 million experiment. This is a 200 million sequel, like big box office sequel. Those little experiments of not screening it and keeping a secret, working on the word of mouth was fine. But I do think we've spoken at length for the past couple of years of issues going on at Warner Brothers. I think they thought, oh, we don't have to screen it. Everybody liked the first one, fuck it, let's roll. We're gonna go to Venice, blah 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 blah. And I think they believe that even if, like we said before, how American audiences don't really like musicals, I think they assume that they could take the hit of people not liking musicals and ride it out and still make back their budget opening week. But as we see now, it's only made back what 90 million, 85 million,
Already,
or yeah,
well,
like
that's worldwide, yeah.
worldwide, yeah, worldwide it's only back like 80 million, which sucks because when the Hollywood Reporter and all of them were talking about the Marvels and Nina Acosta and how she didn't go to the screening because she went attended her birthday with family, that movie made 110 million and they're calling that movie a flop.
Mm.
And I see the industry is really hand holding DC Todd Phillips like kind of like, oh, you're okay, Todd. It doesn't really matter. Like, no, you called, first time director giving a movie, giving a sequel to, basically a tentpole franchise from Marvel. That movie made 10 million opening. Oh, yeah, 100 million opening week. Todd's only made eight global, but that one's a flop and this one is it. I do think there's an issue with how we report these movies in regards to not only male directors and women directors, but also that movie is also directed by a black woman. So that's a double whammy right there of misinterpretation and the reporting I view, in my opinion.
All the news that I've been seeing now is just how like it's not doing well because of the critics' reviews and it's making barely any money. It's probably not going to make his budget back, or if it does, it's just like just nearly going to. But that's not a profit, obviously. So it's not doing well.
Yeah.
And I think that that's the general feelings. I mean, from critics who are just like on YouTube, just making videos about whatever, to like actual critics who are like going to these festivals and seeing like the stuff firsthand, it's just not good, kind of all the way down the line. And I don't think it warrants all of that negativity, but I do think when it comes to, and especially when it comes to anything with Warner Brothers, there's always going to just be something because they don't know how to run things over there, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So there's always going to be something. They've ruined House of the Dragon season two. They've done so much damage, and I'm so
Yes.
tired of them. I'm tired. And like I don't want them to make decisions. Like I just want them to stop. But yeah, I feel like the whole I think they were also kind of riding high on their own supply. Like they really thought that like, well, Joker one did so good that like we can just kind of do whatever and like it'll be fine. And it did not work out that way.
No, it did
And again,
not.
it also comes down to like not marketing it correctly. I think that was also a big
Yeah.
issue.
I kind of expected the reaction for this movie to be this way when he did an interview and they asked, "Oh, how would this Joker fit in Robert Pattinson's version of the movie?" And he was like, "Oh, this Joker would be in awe of Robert Pattinson's Batman's alpha maleness." And I was like, "Oh, you really don't understand the character you've wrote." So once I realized you don't understand the character, I realized that's why the impetus of making this a musical worked in his head, and he wasn't prepared for the reaction that audiences would give. So,
My feelings are not as strong as other people's, and I don't even agree with a lot of the other criticisms necessarily. So I think when we go to like what was the point of making this, I think there's no point in even asking the question because there's so many movies that are coming out that have come out. Like, did we need a Barbie movie? No, but we got one.
yeah.
So it's just like you can only say that until it doesn't work, right? It's like, so what's the point of making this? But if it works, then like, okay, well, I guess there was a point because we liked it. And if it doesn't, then it's like, what's the point of making this movie? It's just like movies are gonna be made. So you can either watch them or not. Like it's really, you don't have to engage if you don't want
I
to.
mean,
We just have different opinions.
yeah, it's clear this movie was out just to make print more money, like the first one. So, but yeah. Um,
Yeah. So then again, what was the point of that movie?
Did you like that clip? Well, you can listen to the entire podcast because the 16 millimeter Film Crew podcast is available on all major podcast platforms.